Thank you all for doing this important work. I know some of you. I'm glad to see you. Glad to be here. Proud to be here. I'll tell a story in three parts. How America reached its peak, the hallmark of which is the bonding of civil and religious freedom under the laws of nature and nature's God. How and why it has receded from that peak, and how it can return. The United States gets started in the early 17th century. A bunch of Christians came from America. They had not been favored in the practice of their faith, and they came here with the intention of establishing communities of enforced religious conformity. And they did that. They thought it would work because the continent was really big. They didn't know how big. In fact, most of them were dead by the time Lewis and Clark came back to give the news how big it was. But they were charmed by its size, and they thought there'll be room for all of us. And that went on for quite a long time, and they found out they couldn't make it work. They fell to fighting. The Quakers were not welcome some places, and nearly everybody was a Christian, as has been true for most of American history. But they also are understanding the principles of liberty better as time goes on. There were some great milestones. Roger Williams, who was expelled from Massachusetts Bay Colony, founded a state, more or less, where you could worship the way you wanted. This realization that came to them was latent in Christianity itself. They came to see that more clearly than they ever had before. Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world," and he means something specific there, I think. A kingdom is a certain kind of thing. It has a king, an earthly king. There are courts, there are laws, there are enforcements. If you read the Bible that Rabbi Soloveitchik is one of the leading experts living in, you will see that all that apparatus is there in what we Christians call the Old Testament for the chosen people. Turns out it was hard duty for those chosen people to get chosen. Still is today. The New Testament doesn't have that. And that has to do with the fact that you can see this in the great Christian fathers, from the very first church fathers down through especially the medievals, Thomas Aquinas. Christianity requires an act of will. C.S. Lewis writes beautifully, if you will not say, "Thy will be done," with a capital T-H-Y, God will eventually say to you, therefore, "Thy," with a little t, "be done." You have to choose it. Can't be compelled. On the other hand, a certain kind of society is necessary for the Christian faith to propagate, and for all faith, all decent faith to propagate. And that requires the obedience of the moral law. And I'll say a word about where that comes from in a minute. But they're working all those things out. In the literature of it, which led to the American Revolution and to the proclamation of the laws of nature and nature's God, is a beautiful achievement, one of the greatest achievements in human history. I'll come back to that a little bit. We receded from that, and that was an act of will. If you look at the year 1915, a document was published partly under the hand of John Dewey called the General Report. It's the founding document for the Teachers Union, the American Association of University Professors. And it says in there that colleges that are founded with religious purposes are duty-bound to identify themselves as propaganda institutions. At that time, almost all colleges, the first colleges from around the year 1100, Bologna, Paris, Oxford, Cambridge, all of them are religious, all of the original American colleges. The college where John Dewey worked at the time was founded with religious purposes. But that is to be upended now. And the reason for it is we have discovered some new truths, and those truths are what we call the fact-value distinction. Values are not real things, only facts, and facts can be measured. And so we count them. And this opens the way for us to use what's going on in the world at the time is the Industrial Revolution and the great, the substitution of steam power for muscle power was the first thing that happened. And that was amazing. And it held out infinite possibilities. And so if we can take those tools that are in the scientific method that make technological progress, we can remake everything. There's a discovery in the middle of all this that we are victims of our circumstances. We think the way we think because of the way we live, because of the way we work. This is in Marx, but it's also in John C. Calhoun, the philosopher of the Confederacy. And because our production circumstances are changing, they dominate us. And we can get control of all that now. We can take over everything. Religion is a problem because God pretends to be, or it is pretended that God is eternal and fixed and gives laws that do not change. Well, that's going to bind us now. All of a sudden, freedom is no more the freedom to live well, serve God. It's now to remake everything. My favorite is Frank Goodnow, who was a teacher all his life. Johns Hopkins, the founder of the American Political Science Association. He says, we teachers take ourselves too seriously sometimes because we think that the things we teach them in the classroom will lay out the course of their lives. Whereas in truth, the economic conditions that prevail in the future will determine what they think. So we're not free. But if we can get control of all of those conditions, if we can remake the society, if we can manage everything in it. I remember today the government of the United States is about 51% of the gross domestic product, and at any time before 1930 it was never more than 12%. We can become our own creators. We can exercise our will upon everything. But God is in the way. How do you get back? The answer is apparent in the life of Charlie Kirk. He was a splendid young man. I knew him for, 12 of his 31 years. He's a really remarkable kid, but in another way, unremarkable. Because Aristotle says the human being stretches himself out to know. I said at the memorial service of Charlie that he's the only person I know who didn't get a formal education in a college. Today, most colleges are not a very good place to get such an education. He's the only person I know who put together the most beautiful argument that's ever been put together. The argument is stated in that expression, the laws of nature and nature's God, and it just goes like this. First of all, we all want to know. We're the only things that can know. And when we look about us, everything we see, we can see what kind of thing it is. And that means we see some good in it. And then we see that the goods are arranged in a hierarchy, and they point up toward God. And the evidence of God is everywhere on this table in front of me, in every one of us, in this room. This is a particularly beautiful room. The evidence of God would be in it if it were not a beautiful room, because it's a room. It has the goodness of the room. It provides shelter. But we need shelter. What do we need it for? To live. How are we to live? Those questions are on our minds, all of our minds. This ladder, this recovery of the thing that every college of any age was founded to teach the young, is the path back to God and the path back to freedom. And it is the only path. And if we do not tread that path, we will lose our freedom. And worse than that, we will deserve to lose it. Thank you.